Now let's hear viewpoints from both sides of the aisle. We welcome Austin Barbour and Brandon Jones to our MPB studios. Austin is a Republican strategist and founder of the Clearwater Group. Brandon is an attorney and a former Democratic member of the Mississippi House. Welcome back, gentlemen. Good to have you as always.
Good to be here.
The governor has signed the tax reform bill into law. He described it as a transformational moment in Mississippi's history. He said Mississippi is now the first state in the country that had an income tax to eliminate it. Brandon, it's been a long, sometimes messy road to get here, but here we are.
Yeah, and you said a moment ago something that I think is very important to underline for the listener. First state in the United States to institute a personal income tax and then to pass a law that would fully eliminate it. And just think about that. I mean, think about where Mississippi's economy falls within the 50 states. Think about what we know about the current state of the economy. The fact that federal payments to Mississippi are being reduced by the hour. We're finding out all the time about various reductions that are occurring across state government. And now we are taking away a third of our revenue in the form of reducing this personal income tax. We try on this program to talk in terms that are reasonable and rational and to have good conversations here, and we'll do that again today. But this is lunacy. This is wild. This jeopardizes the future of our state's economy, and by virtue of that, it jeopardizes the state that we're going to have and what kind of quality of life we can expect. I'm sure we'll talk in a moment about some of the moving pieces. Why did the Senate not fight harder if it made some error and then, the House takes it? Why did the House not be more transparent at what it was doing if it knew this mistake had been made? What was that sham of a press conference we saw a moment ago where Senate members stood behind the governor and said, yeah, we just agreed to all of this, when we all know that's not true? I mean, that wasn't what they intended to pass. But putting all that aside, what we're left with is a bill that devastates Mississippi's economy, and as our expert said from a conservative think tank in Washington, is not calibrated to survive a recession. And as any economist across the country will tell you, we're not in a recession-proof state right now. I mean, we will face recession, if not soon, then in the future. And it's almost a mathematical certainty that if and when that time comes, we're going to be in tough shape. So I've said enough preamble there, Wilson, but I think it's rough, and I think we're going to have a hard time trying to figure out a way to pivot out of this.
Austin?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about this year and even last year and probably the year before and other years, the 10 plus years we've been doing this show about tax reform. Tax reform and education reform have always been the two biggest issues that we've discussed on this show. And here we have monumental legislation. One of y'all described this as a bumpy road. Yeah, it sure as hell was a bumpy road to get here. And it wasn't the cleanest of processes, and certainly there are questions to ask about the process. But as a Republican, I'm a believer in less taxes. Okay, I am a believer that if I'm having to pay in less, that's more money for me to spend and put back into the economy and let money flow that way. And I'm also a believer in that we can do the things that we need to do as a state to ensure that our citizens are taken care of in the proper way: roads and bridges, education, Medicaid, so on and so forth. But it is a monumental day that we have eliminated the income tax. We are now at the same level, in the same position as other states that in many ways we're jealous of: Texas and Tennessee and Florida. Can we ever be one of those states? I don't know. But the leaders at the legislature and the governor has been a big advocate. They firmly believe that in order for us to be able to compete with Tennessee and Texas, particularly those two states, we have to eliminate the income tax, and they've done that. This is a long period between now and when this will actually happen. If we just look at the math, remember we used to pay 5% in state income tax. That got cut from 5 down to 4. We still have about another 2 years before that cut will be finished. and maybe it actually could possibly be 3 years. I'm sorry. I don't believe that the 10-year window to repeal the income tax, to take it from 4 down to 0, Brandon, will start until the late 2020s. So we're talking about the late 2030s of when this will actually fully be eliminated. That's 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 legislative sessions between now and then. Certainly, future legislatures can take a different position on this, and certainly they can if things get bad. I pray that they don't get bad. I think Brandon is fair to ask that question. What if they do? Well, then I guess obviously those decisions will be answered by future legislators, and I could say that Republican leadership now will say, we hope that we believe that because of this elimination of this tax cut, elimination of income tax, that we're only going to make the economy that much stronger and better and able to withstand those future bad times.
The governor characterized this and painted a picture of a pretty final situation to where the income tax is going to be eliminated. That's what he called transformative. But there's another bill out there, Senate Bill 3095, that is still alive and could rock the boat a little bit. What's happening with that right now, as far as you understand?
There certainly, this is like this at every legislative session, and Brandon can attest to this because he was in the legislature for 4 years. There are always negotiations going on until they sine die. I mean, there's a story out from a local publication from a few days ago, March 24th, that said Speaker says House willing to renegotiate typo in the tax bill. Obviously, everybody who's listening to this show, they're pretty much in the weeds on what's going on at the Capitol, and they know that there was a mistake that was made. Could something happen? There is another vehicle, as you said, 3095, that's in conference, and I don't know. We'll just have to sort of follow the process. I'm sure if the House were willing to come to the Senate, as the speaker in that story said that they were, and this is about the trigger language, to say, okay, we'll try to strengthen that trigger language a little bit more. That's, as the speaker said, in that it's in a common sense, these can possibly be met. The House is going to want something, and I get it. The mobile sports gaming is still alive. That bill is still alive. I'm sure there are other issues. That's been a priority for the House the whole time. I'm sure there are other priorities that the House may have. So it's going to be a really interesting weekend and early next week to watch, because I think they'll be done next week.
But you think that whatever legislation we get to fix the decimal point, if we get that, will include more than just that?
I mean, how could it not? I mean, how could it not? If you're the House and you're going to the Senate and you're saying, hey, you want this, and we're willing to give you this, but we'd like for you to do this as well. It's just negotiation. I mean, no different than if we were buying a car. If I had a bag of M&Ms over here and he had an apple and he really wanted some chocolate, I'm like, I can get you some chocolate.
I'm glad I never had to negotiate with Austin. But look, y'all. So this bill is going to be disastrous for the state. I'll just have the counter press conference for Tate Reeves now. It's going to be terrible. They're going to be eating crow, and we're going to be left without a whole lot of political room to do this, because people like Austin that run those campaigns are going to call anybody who tries to turn back the tide on this somebody who's raising taxes. So let's just take that out. It's gone.
It's
gone. It's a political reality. So this thing is stuck, and we're going to have to deal with the fallout. And so we got a poor state that's going to try to do things with less money, which I don't know. You tell me how that works. But we also haven't talked about PERS, which we took away the pension for new employees. Y'all know that? So now if you come to work, if you're a firefighter or a first responder, police officer, school teacher, and you get hired right now, you don't get a pension anymore. What you get is a 401k. Now, historically in Mississippi, that defined benefit has been the thing that attracted people to work for the state. And then when they got to that 10-year mark and they were feeling tired, they were like, I kind of want to do something else. These are hard jobs, but I'm going to have a pension waiting for me at the end of this. And I'm going to maybe have a little bit of cost of living increase. And we've taken that off the table for new employees.
Isn't it part 401k and part pension that they get?
It's not a defined benefit payment anymore. And so you can't sit there and say, this is what I'm going to make when I retire. And there's no cost of living adjustment. Now, Democrats appeared to be in agreement with Republicans that something needed to be done to stabilize the system moving forward. But there was a way to do it that maintained this pension-based system so that there was a defined benefit so that you would know, when I leave, this is what I'm going to make with a cost of living adjustment. And that went out the window. So, I mean, I think we have to say this was a big double whammy for folks who monitor this stuff and for folks who might be thinking about teaching in Mississippi. We have a teacher shortage, y'all. This ain't going to help that. We have a hard time in some municipalities and some counties trying to fill out the police force and trying to fill out, some of these other first responder jobs. So I think that's worth noting. So I do think there's a little bit of a crunch that we're facing here. Austin said something that he has said a few times, which is, he favors tax decreases. I think that's popular. I mean, I think that's the popular thing to say. But there are prudent ways to do it. And, this, again, I think about this guy who's been talking about this conservative tax expert who says, the Senate's pass at this the first time, the bill they thought they were passing had some of those features where certain cuts don't go into effect if it's not justified by where the budget is. And even though those weren't tied to revenue, it was a little bit of a novel concept of its own.
They followed a model that maybe Kentucky or another state did.
A little different, but nonetheless, there was at least something where the economy had to be showing signs of strength and wellness. So, I mean, I think, Austin, even to go there, I think there was a more prudent approach there, and I think that's what the Senate tried. And then they sent over this bill that was a mistake. The House knew it was a mistake. They didn't tell all their members that it was a mistake, by the way. And they didn't let on to the Senate that they had sent over a bad bill. And so all this stuff happened, and then the Senate was like, what?
But they were standing right behind the governor when he signed it today. Like they were all together.
And can I just say this, and Austin, I have a political
and
observation.
we're recording
here.
this on Thursday, I should point out, and that's when all this happened.
Delbert Hosemann for governor ended this week. That's over. That whatever, he was going to have to fight. The same thing everybody fights in politics now, which is age and all those things. Bungler, he's supposed to be a details guy. How many times have we heard Delbert Hosemann? I know the numbers. I'm a tax lawyer. Well, you just sent over a bill that changed our tax code for the rest of time, and you screwed it up. So I don't think he gets a bigger job for that.
But making concrete making concrete statements, definitive statements in politics is a dangerous game to play.
You've been at it longer than me. You're right. I didn't expect you to agree with me. By the way, I mean, I'm just saying.
I would never write hardly anybody off. And anyway, how many times did Trump get written off?
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe nothing matters anymore. Maybe it's all just whatever. But I think this was a tough turn of events for Team Delbert, because if I'm in a primary with Delbert, I'm going to have a hard time not saying, what on earth? On the other hand, we were talking about the prospects of a negotiation. Tate Reeves is a lot of things, and I've called him a lot of things in here that he probably doesn't love. But, he's not a wilting violet. He is not going to have the press conference he just had over the bill he just had. It takes three to tango, actually, in the legislative process. You got to have the House, Senate, and the governor. I find it hard to believe he's going to sign a bill that is in.
He's been an advocate, for a long, long time. When he was lieutenant governor, they had a huge tax cut that he and Philip Gunn, when Philip Gunn was speaker, got worked out. He's been, standing at the top of whatever platform he's given to say, look, I think we should fully eliminate the income tax, and we need it to be competitive with these surrounding states. So you're right. I don't think he's going to change his mind on that.
Yeah, he wouldn't sign another bill.
He didn't want tax swaps. He didn't want tax increases. Probably didn't love the gas tax, which was badly needed. That was in there, but
he is declaring victory. This week.
And then the roads and bridges crowd, because we were talking about that gas tax increase. I think that comes out I can't recall, it's $70 million over the course of time. Y'all, the cost of building roads and bridges is only going up at an astronomical pace. As big of an increase as this is, and it is a big one, people are going to feel it. 5 cents per year for 3 years, so 15 cents.
3 cents a year for it's 9 cents total.
So it gets up to 9. Okay,
yeah.
I think it was originally 15, but okay, so it gets up to 9. Y'all, that's not going to be enough. I mean, if the economy doesn't it doesn't buttress that with additional funds, these little enhancers, it's not going to be enough. You're not going to be able to build the roads and bridges and the infrastructure out that this state needs moving into the future with that type of increase. And the 1% sales tax, you could say the same thing. I just think the money is strange here.
I just leave it at this. It's been a really interesting session. The
Not over yet.
Well, that's where I'm going. It is not over yet. I don't think we're going to see any major changes to what was just signed by the governor today. But I'm never shocked by anything at the state capitol until they go sine die.
Austin's our gambling expert. Like, if you're sitting at the gambling table, I feel like the Senate is saying, let's go double or nothing. And we all know they're just about to lose something else. I mean, you're going back to the well to negotiate with a House that's already basically pulled the rug out from under you.
But I think if the Senate were going to go back, they're looking to go back to something where where they were on trigger language. They're trying to get that moved up a little bit. And if the House was willing to do that, the House is going to got to get something that they want. I mean, that's negotiating 101. But who knows? We may just be done where we are.
At Issue, we'll be watching, and we'll be here next week to talk about it, will we not? Thank you all, as always. This has been At Issue, a weekly discussion about the 2025 Mississippi legislative session. You can hear At Issue every Friday night at 6:30 during the session on MPB Think Radio. You can also subscribe to our At Issue podcast, which features extended version of our roundtable discussions and featured interviews. And if you want to see what we all look like, you can catch the video versions of our roundtable and interviews at mpbonline.org and on YouTube. At Issue is a production of Mississippi Public Broadcasting. I'm Wilson Stribling. From all of us at MPB, we thank you for joining us.